This is the new collection of short stories, 10 short stories by Alexander Jablokov. Arkham House, A-R-K-H-A-M, Arkham House, publishing house, a small house. Now, one of the keynotes of an Arkham House book is that they're beautiful. They're just put together beautifully. If you ever could just hold one and see, it's got this wonderful binding and head and tail bands and absolutely fabulous illustrations in this particular book by J.K. Potter. These are mostly stories of the near future, and The Breath of Suspension is a wonderful book, but you're not going to be able to buy it through most bookstores. You're going to have to order it from Arkham House, and all you have to do is write and say, send me a catalog, and they'll send you a catalog. Also recommend a terrific new comic book. Well, it's not a comic book, actually. It's a graphic novel. It's called Jar of Fools. Jar of Fools, and it's written and drawn by a guy named Jason Lutz. This comic was the talk of the Comic-Con this year, the San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody was saying, this is the hot book, the hot-in book. Now, it's not superheroes, and it's not mystical stuff like that. It's just a really interesting kind of book, the same way Kyle Baker's Why I Hate Saturn of a couple of years ago was interesting. Now, if you want to order this one, it's called Jar of Fools by Jason Lutz, and I recommend it highly. It's very, very interesting. As long as we're on comic books, best comic in years. Up there with The Sandman, up there with Peter David's Hulk. This is a book called Zombie, X-O-M-B-I. And it's weird, man. This is like Doom Patrol when Grant Morrison took it over and made it real good. It is a very, very hot book, very exciting, very strange, very surreal. Again, for instance, he said, flipping to the front cover, this character here, she's recurring. She's called the Catholic Schoolgirl. And as you can see, it says, it was the sound of mist chewing. Very good comic. I urge you to get it. Here's John Crowley's new one, Love and Sleep. It's the sequel to John Crowley's novel, Egypt, and I recommend it. It's very, very good. It's not as good as Egypt, but it's very, very good. One plug for the Comics Buyer's Guide. This is the weekly newspaper of the industry, comics industry. It's got everything in it you could possibly want to know about comics during the week. And it's full of ads, and it's full of all kinds of interesting articles about what's happening in Comics Weekly. It is a must-not-miss reading experience every week if you like comics. I wish I could recommend the best in science fiction. It's not as good as it should be. It's filled with errors, filled with the kinds of errors that perpetuate themselves in other encyclopedic books and reference books in the science fiction field. I guess it's like $50. And it's interesting. It's got some good stuff in it, but it is not as flawless as it ought to be for that kind of money. Okay, so now this is the other thing I want to show you, a terrific new thing to buy. There's this friend of mine up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. His name is Grant Kornberg, and Grant used to have a bookshop called the Hardback Cafe, which is a bookstore and a restaurant. He got out of that business. He now does something called Largely Literary Designs. Largely Literary Design. You don't have to get too close on that. And one of the things that he does in Largely Literary Designs are these incredible posters and jigsaw puzzles called Buried Blueprints. And they're the work of Albert Lorenz, and they're incredible. This is my beautiful wife, and she and I were going to put one of these jigsaw puzzles together for you. So we worked for about 135 hours yesterday, and unfortunately, this is as much as we got done. What we're putting together here is Noah's Ark. That's what it's supposed to look like, and this is as much as we've gotten done. Now, let me tell you how to order these. There's an 800 number. This is real easy. You call 800-543-5453. That number again is 800-543-5453. Great posters, great jigsaw puzzles, and no one else has ever shown them to you. We are the first, and I tell you, they are sensational.
Our resident commentator on the passing scene is award-winning author Harlan Ellison. When we call him award-winning, that's an understatement. Harlan has won more awards for his 62 books, more than 1,700 stories, articles, essays, and columns than any other living fantasist. His current books are Minefields, Mephisto and Onyx, and I, Robot Screenplay, based on concepts by Isaac Asimov.
Oh, all right, you caught me. Yes, this is one of the secret vaults here in the house. Yes, and you know what's in this secret vault? I'm going to show you what's in this secret vault. In this secret vault, part of my comic collection. Yes, folks, I've been collecting comics since 1939. Look at this. Look at this. Thousands of old comics. Ha ha ha. This is just part of the Marvel stuff. And do you know why I've been collecting comics? Because I love comics. And now, as a matter of fact, I have my own comic. Let me tell you about my own comic. This was not my idea. The producer said, let us do a show about your new comic. My new comic is called Harlan Ellison's Dream Corridor. Now, let me tell you how I came by this comic. About 4 years ago, Showtime, the cable network, came to me and they said, we want you to host a kind of a, show of fantasy stories. And you could do, you could do things like from Dangerous Visions, or you could do your own stories. So I said, that's kind of interesting. So I put together a thing called Harlan Ellison's Dream Corridor. So I put it together with an incredibly interesting framing device, I say with great humility, and we went and we talked about it. And they kind of beetled their brows and they scratched their heads like the little chimpanzees that they are. And they said, we don't understand what it is you're going to do with this framing device. We want you to do Rod Serling. And I said, no, 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 you don't understand. I'm not Rod Serling. I have a very different kind of act entirely. So they gave it a pass. Now, about 2 months later, 3 months later, HBO comes to talk to me about the same thing. They had heard about this. So I go in and I show them the thing with the framing mechanism and blah, 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 blah. And they say, again, we don't understand. Why don't you have storyboards made up? I said, I got your storyboards right here. Anyhow, it was because storyboards cost a fortune to make. So I let that slide. Now, a little time goes by and I figure to myself, storyboards. There's got to be a way to have storyboards produced that not only don't cost me any money, but can make me some money. That's what I really wanted to do. And then I thought, epiphany, a comic book. A comic book, at its best, is like great storyboards. And if I can get people to adapt my stories and they look really great, then I'll just show it to these morons at the networks, and they'll go for it, and I'll have my own TV series, and then I can retire to Bora Bora and never have to worry about that moron Charles Platt ever again. Well, folks, the first issue is coming out in January. It's called Harlan Ellison's Dream Corridor. We begin with a special, and then we begin the numbering with #1 in April. And the stories are unbelievable. The great Doug Wildey, who only recently passed away, he did his last work for my book. He adapted one of my westerns called The End of the Time of Leonard. We got Pat Broderick doing an adaptation of Len Wein doing my story, Quick Time. We've got John Byrne adapting I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Peter David, the great Peter David, who writes The Hulk. Peter David did my story Catman, which is being illustrated by Diodato. It is a great magazine, and in every issue, there'll be an original short story by me around the cover. This is the cover of the first issue. This is an original Stephen Hickman illustration. The second issue is an original Michael Whalen. The third issue is Leo and Diane Dillon. We got the best artists. We got the best writers. They're going to be real, how shall I put this delicately, real fundament-kicking books. And it's my own comic. I got my own comic. You understand what I'm saying here? I'm age 60 and I got my own comic. I am a success at last. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, with the death of Bob Bloch and Carl Edward Wagner and Burt Lancaster and Sir Devendra Varma, about 5 or 6 real nice people died the last couple of weeks as we are filming this. You think about time. You think about how much time you got left, and you think about what memory is. And in truth, who we are is only a congeries of memories. When I talk about this happening at some convention or that happening at some convention, it's only real as long as there are still people alive who can back it up. When I talk about meeting Hugo Gernsback, there may have been somebody else in Chicago who said, yeah, I saw that when Ellison met a Gernsback. It was really interesting. When Bob Bloch dies, the past goes. So I've been thinking about time. I've been thinking about time. And time, at this time of the year, is chronicled by calendars. It's a long stretch, I know, but I don't know, calendars just suddenly seemed important to me. And so I have assembled a group of really interesting calendars that you can go out and look for. Now, at this time of year, many of you get your new calendars and you get the latest Star Trek calendar, or you get the latest Hildebrandt calendar, or every year you may get the Boris Vallejo or the Frank Frazetta. And I'm going to try this year to move you off that. I'm going to try to bring into your life a little culture. You hear what I'm saying to you here? I'm talking culture. What I would like to do is get you to start looking at some of the wonderful art images that are a little fantastic in nature, but are not specifically genre-oriented. Like, for instance, back here, let me reach for it. There's a cactus here, and I don't want to hurt myself, but one of the great, great artists, a man named Gustav Klimt. Klimt did these beautiful, beautiful paintings. And this is a calendar of Klimt art. And it's published by a wonderful publishing house called Tenus. And Tenus publishes many, many, many wonderful calendars with terrific artists on them. The Klimt is only one of them. The Klimt, let me show you the Maxfield Parrish. This is the Maxfield Parrish calendar. It is so beautiful. Maxfield Parrish was the master. Most of the fantasists of today, whether it's Don Maitz or Michael Whalen, will tell you that Maxfield Parrish was the man. There's Parrish. Keith Haring. You ought to see Keith Haring. He had a very short art career. It was only from 1981 to 1990. And he did these wonderful street drawings, and he did these wonderful kind of fantasy images of the universe. Keith Haring died of AIDS, and some of the images are vaguely sexual in nature, but as you can see, there's nothing vaguely sexual about that at all. He just had these wonderful, wonderful kind of innocent street images, and I recommend to you Keith Haring, the 1995 Keith Haring. These are all Tenus calendars. Kenny Scharf is one of these great modern fantasists. Kenny Scharf's stuff is so funny and so pretty that it'll make you smile every day that you have the calendar up. I recommend Kenny Scharf to you. That's S-C-H-A-R-F. Now, let me show you something that Tenus does that you're going to love. This is called a cassette, a CD cassette calendar. This is Magritte, and on the back is the calendar. But each day, each month rather, is a Magritte painting. This one is one of my big faves. This is an easel calendar. Now, this one was done by Chronicle Books in San Francisco. You got to ask for this. This is the Kinsey locomotive portraits, and it forms an easel like that, and it stands up like that, and you flip it each month on your desk like this, and you wind up with these great images of old locomotives. It's a terrific one. It's not fantasy, I know, but it's wonderful. My last one is one of my real faves. This is the Fractals 1995 calendar. These are the computer-generated images that are based on the fractal geometry of Mandelbrot, and they are just beautiful. And here is a for instance. This is called Snowflake in Winter. It's by Darrell Hepting, and it's Van Koch's Snowflake Curve, an early mathematical monster, and it's just gorgeous. And you hang that one up in your house, and people will come in and say, instead of seeing these oiled barbarian warriors and women with improbable breasts, they will say, you got culture, you got class, and you will have that class for a full year if you'll only listen to me. My pal Bob Bloch died at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday, September 23rd. This commentary goes in a couple of different places. Bear with me as I go there. When I got into L.A. in 1962, I was broke, dead flat broke. It's one of those Horatio Alger stories. I had literally 10 cents in my pocket, 10 cents. And I was getting divorced from a lady, and she had a son from a previous marriage, and we had driven out here, and I got here broke. And I wound up in a motel, and I was stuck in that motel for 2 weeks because I didn't have the money to get out. And I went and I asked Bob Bloch, whom I had known for many years. I'd known Bob since I was 14 years old. I went and I asked Bob Bloch if he could grub stake me a couple of $100 bucks. It's 1962. $200 was a lot of money. Bob had just come out of a year-long Writers Guild strike and was pretty close to the edge, had no money, but I didn't know that. He gave me the $200. I was unable to pay him back for 5, 6 years. He never asked me for it once. Never. When I paid it back, it's almost as if he didn't remember it. Bob Bloch was a good friend of mine. He was a great, great writer. He's a man who finished the last unfinished Edgar Allan Poe story, The Lighthouse. Among the many things he wrote, yours truly, Jack the Ripper, and a wonderful biography, what he calls an unauthorized autobiography called Once Around the Block. And he died. He died without getting a Grand Master Award. And a lot of people say, well, he wrote fantasy, he wrote horror. He also wrote science fiction, folks. He wrote it from the age of 17 on, when he was discovered by H.P. Lovecraft and made part of that inner Lovecraft circle. He wrote a lot of science fiction. But he never got a Grand Master Award. You know where part of this commentary is going, because I've been talking about Science Fiction Writers of America and how they have been denying the Grand Master Award to at least 6 major writers who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Bob died without getting that award. The days grow short, and SFWA, Science Fiction Writers of America, which says you can only give out 6 Grandmaster Awards in a decade, are letting the days go by, and they're talking and talking and talking, and the time is now well past for talking. Those of you who give a damn, please send letters to the president of SFFWA. Her name is Barbara Hambly, and say, we read this stuff. You can have all the little private organizations you want, but it's still our literature, and we really want these people to get the Grandmaster Award before they die. We're not talking here about not giving it to them this week. We're talking about them ever. If they die, it's too late. Which brings me to the second point that I was going to. Before Bob died, he was a very proud man, and he and his wife Ellie did not want the knowledge that he was dying to get out. Bob wanted to release that information himself. He wrote an article, it's in the current issue of Omni, about facing death. But he didn't want people to know about it because he didn't want them to think that he was needful of money or needful of attention. He was very, very proud that way. Unfortunately, a man who publishes a semi-little newspaper, a little amateur rag called Science Fiction Chronicle, before Bob Bloch died, ran a piece, Bob Bloch, on his deathbed. And he went into detail about Bob's cancer. It was very unpleasant, and the man was pilloried for it. I'm not even mentioning his name because I don't want to give him that much publicity. And when Bob's daughter, from Bob's deathbed, called him and said, why did you do this? This is a terrible thing. He argued with her and said it was his right to do it because this was news. Now, other newspaper people who happen to be in the genre, people like Christine Catherine Rush, who edits Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, she says, no, I've been a journalist all my life. She said it is the public's need to know of the death, not of the dying. There is a lot of this goes on. It is bad taste. Science fiction, the fandom, fans, they're forever writing great eulogies about writers after they're gone. They want to put on conventions in their honor, but they don't do it when they're alive. They don't honor them when they're alive. It's then they can all beat their breasts and talk about how wonderful this person was and do the eulogies that you see in fanzines, endless stupid fanzine eulogies, but they don't do anything for them when they're alive. What they could do for them when they're alive is get them the Grandmaster Award. The death of Bob Bloch brings this home to us very, very, very sharply now. The time for talk has passed. I've done 4 of these, and SFWA has done nothing yet. Now is the time for those of you, writers and readers and fans and editors who give a damn, to do something. Put the pressure on, if for no one else, for the memory of Bob Bloch. Yeah, forget it, Jarek. I have no opinions this week. See this, when you voice opinions, guys like Jarek get all upset. He's got a million opinions. Well, this time I have nothing to say. Absolutely nothing to say. We could just end it right now. I mean, I suppose I could talk about the new publication of the first Philip K. Dick book, you know, his unpublished first novel, Gather Yourselves Together, published by WCS Books. They could run a super with the address of WCS Books and say that it costs $40, and it's his very first novel from 1952. But no, I'm not going to talk about that. Or I could talk about this. This is a thing called the Voice It. Voice It. This is a wonderful little thing. You know what Voice It is? Voice It is like a portable Post-it. It's this little itty-bitty thing, and when I have a question, like, look what, I press this and I say, tell Jarek to go and, you know, take a flying leap. And then you press it off, and then you play it. Tell Jarek to go and, you know, take a flying leap. See, this is a wonderful thing. It's made by the Voice It company. I urge people to get these. This is a great thing for any businessman or anybody who's got ideas, writers who get story ideas and they don't know what to do with them. You got a million Post-its. You use these. You got 70 seconds. Bam, little short things. It's a great gadget. Also proving I'm not a Luddite. Or I could point out that Omni is making a laughingstock of itself with all of these stupid UFO things. UFOs, every damn issue. UFO conspiracy, UFOs, the real UFOs, exclusive UFO cover-ups. Nobody cares. The only people who believe in UFOs are the same people who, they're the kind of people who don't ask the important questions of life. Questions like, why is Selsun blue green? What is it that Sharon Stone has up her skirt that at least 50% of the population of the planet also has that deludes us into believing this woman is an actress? From what university and in what rigor did Dr. Dre get his diploma? Does it not bother you that at least half the X-Men are women? Why are they called skinheads when clearly they are boneheads? Separated at birth, Garth Brooks and Mr. Potato Head. These are the important questions, and I could talk about them if I had an opinion, but I have no opinions, none at all. So bite this, Jarek.
Our resident commentator on the passing scene is award-winning author Harlan Ellison. When we call him award-winning, that's an understatement. Harlan has won more awards for his 62 books, more than 1,700 stories, articles, essays, and columns than any other living fantasist. His current books are Minefields, Mephisto and Onyx, and I, Robot Screenplay, based on concepts by Isaac Asimov.
You know, I go where the action is when we do these commentaries, and it keeps going back to the internet. It keeps going back to these computer bulletin boards. Keep getting the flame wars of things that I'm alleged to have said. A couple of weeks ago, it wasn't all that well edited. It was one of the few that Dick Crew didn't edit well, but he does very, very well. But this one, the one I was talking about, conventions, instead of it being a lament for small conventions and meeting people like Edward E. Smith, Doc Smith, and Hugo Gernsback and things like that, and saying the big conventions are now too big and they mostly serve publishers. It turned out that people all of a sudden on the internet were screaming that I was saying that one of the conventions, the WesterCon, had made so much money that they were able to give money to other people, and on and on. It was the usual blabber and babble that you hear on the internet. And so they didn't really get the message of what I had been saying, but it went all over the internet. And then there was another one. The internet got crazy and decided that the great author William Kotzwinkle had not gone to the World Fantasy Convention in New Orleans because I had told him that if I wasn't made the Toastmaster, that I would stop him from going. Well, that's just too loony even to talk about. But I decided that I was going to do a little something about the computer nets this time, and I was going to use not just my comments, but the comments of one of the net gurus, Bruce Sterling. Now, Bruce Sterling is the author of The Hacker Crackdown, among other books, Islands in the Net, Global Head, Schismatrix. I published Involution Ocean. His new book is called Heavy Weather, and he is really a heavy-duty internet guy. And what he says about the nets in his column Cat Scan, which is from a magazine called Science Fiction Eye, is very, very interesting. Electronic text lacks the ritual, sensual elements of print publication: back covers, front covers, typography, italics, convenient stopping places, an impending sense of completion, what one might call the body language of the printed text. The loss of these sensory clues has subtle but profound effects on one's dealing with the text. What he's saying here is that the bulletin board, on which many of you spend most of your nights, is not really the equivalent of a book, that you're not going to get the same sensory load. He also says the letter columns everywhere, the reader-written e-zines, tend to attract monomaniacs with an axe to grind. We have all these people who stand on there and diss each other endlessly. This is one of your own. This is one of your gurus. It's not me babbling at you. This is one of your own high gurus talking. And he says, I've gotten quite a lot of email that by all rights should have been written in crayon by a person whom a kindly society had deprived of sharp objects. It can often take several exchanges of email to bring forth a realization that would have taken perhaps 7 seconds of contact in real life. This person is unhinged. These are all problems that one gets with the computer bulletin boards. I think you should talk among yourselves. And in fact, when he talks about science fiction, he says the net is not really concerned about talking about science fiction. What he says is the net is interested only in the net. Net spiders are, in that sense, much like the ham radio people who bounce signals off the ionosphere all the way to Madagascar so as to ask, well, what kind of ham shack you got? What kind of bulletin board you got? I rest my case. It's not me. One of the things that gets me crazy, and it gets every writer crazy, whether they're in this field or any other genre, is getting one of these letters from somebody in East Chittling Switch, Georgia, or some other center of great wisdom, saying, well, I know you're a great writer, and I just love your works, but I can't find any of your books on the newsstand. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why, dummy. You also can't find Joseph Conrad's books, or Edith Wharton's books, or Mark Twain's books. That's because this is a market-driven industry. If any part of that phrase confuses you, turn to the person next to you and say, what means that, market-driven? What it means is that the ad men and the marketing people and the advertising people tell you what will go and what will sell and what will not sell. Now, if I have a book come out today, a paperback, and it goes on sale, and they put it in the 7-Eleven spinner racks, right? Now, first of all, the top pockets of those 7-Eleven spinner racks are purchased by the big paperback houses. We're talking Pocketbooks and New American Library, which is Signet Books, and Bantam and Dell. And that means that if you're in one of the lesser companies, you are stuck in one of the lower pockets. Now, you know yourself, when you go into one of those 7-Elevens or some other fast shopping place, you spin the rack and you look at what you can see. You do not bend down, because if you bend down, 27 people are going to trip over you and dump their Slurpees all over you. So that means that if you got a book in one of those bottom pockets, forget it. You are necky hokey, no price. You can't sell the book. But let's say that the book does get up into one of those upper pockets. How long does it stay there? What is that? A month? What, you said, what, 6 weeks? And you over there sitting on the sofa stuffing your face with Twinkies. What'd you say? What, a week? No. What you've got is 4 days. 4 days before they bring in the next batch of books. In the course of a month, paperback publishers will publish something like 2,000 different titles. Now that means that the only ones that are going to get really put on the top are Danielle Steele and Stephen King and Louis L'Amour when he was alive, and whoever is this month's flavor of the month, you know, like John Grisham. And that means that everybody else who is called mid-list gets shoved to the bottom. Now that's the ideal situation. You want to know how long it is in the biggest newsstand in America? First of all, do you know where the biggest newsstand in America is? No. Good guess, but no. I'll tell you where it is. It's at O'Hare Airport in Chicago. They have the largest newsstands in the world there. In those satellites, they sell more paperbacks per annum than entire cities, entire states. And you know how long you've got there to make it? How long do you say? What? 1 day? 2 days? 5 days? No. You got 3 hours. One day I was waiting for a plane. I was transferring heaven knows where, and I met the guy who comes around with the little cart, and he's dragging the slab cart behind him that's got all the boxes of books. And I'm watching him fill the pockets in these newsstands in the different satellites. And I said, how long can you tell when a book sells there? He says, you got 3 hours. He will load up a pocket. He'll put 4 of everything, and then he will go away. His rounds around all of the satellites of O'Hare Airport take him 3 hours. When he comes back, if he put up 6 copies of my book, and there are 4 still there, and he put up 13 copies of the Stephen King book, and there's 1 there, out come my 4, and in go 13 more of Stephen's books. Now, that's why you can't find any of my books. I got 59 books. None of them are in print at the moment. And I'm not the only one.
For a list of Harlan's books that are available, here's the address. Write to HERC, Post Office Box 55548. That's in Sherman Oaks, California. And the zip is 914130548. Simply ask for Harlan's book list. He also has audio recordings available as well. Simply say, The Buzz sent you.
Times is tough for writers. You just don't know how it is. In addition to having a steadily more illiterate audience every year, I mean, that is to say, people who don't read books, people who have forgotten the past to the extent that nostalgia becomes what they had for breakfast, we have this thing called political correctness. Now, in the world of science fiction, writers have to pay attention to what's going on around them, because science fiction is the only 100% hopeful fiction. That is to say, inherent in the form is, there will be a tomorrow. If you read a science fiction story, it says, this will happen tomorrow. Now, that's very positive. It's very pragmatic. We'll be here tomorrow. We may be unhappy. We may be all living like maggots, but we'll be here. So that means it's 100% positive. Artistic freedom, thus, becomes something that might be a little troublesome, because we deal in allegory, because we deal in the ideas that are not exactly what they are today, but they seem to be about something that we know today, and yet they're tomorrow's idea. The Jesse Helmses of the world, the Phyllis Schlaflys of the world, the Pat Buchanans of the world, the skinheads of the world find science fiction very, very, very troubling. And they want you to be politically correct. That is to say, you are not allowed to insult anyone. You can't have a character who's an unpleasant woman. You can't have an unpleasant person who has a deformity. Everybody has to be terrific. Let me tell you a story. This truly happened. A few years ago, I got a letter. I get a lot of mail. As a writer of Matters Fantastic and as a critic of the field, I get a lot of mail. And they're filled with opinions. Everybody has opinions. I have them, you have them. And we are all told from the moment we open our eyes that everyone is entitled to his or her opinion. Well, that's horsepucky, of course. We are not entitled to our opinions. We are entitled to our informed opinions. Without research, without background, without understanding, It's nothing. It's just bibble-babble. It's like a fart in a wind tunnel, folks. So I get opinions. And I get a letter one day from a guy, we'll call him Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson says, "You are always writing stories in which midgets are villains." Now, footnote here. When you get one of these letters, they don't say something rational like, "In this story you did it," or "that story you did it." It's always, "You always did it." So I went back through 1,100 published stories. I found 2 stories with midgets in them. One of them was the hero. So this guy writes me and he says, "I am 3 foot tall and we don't like being called midgets. We like being called little people." Well, I thought about this letter for a while, this political correctness being a problem, and I really am concerned about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and finally I wrote him back a letter and I said, "Dear Mr. Johnson, I am 5'5". I'm a little person. You're a midget."
I am the High Priestess of the Temple of the Triangle. Welcome, and learn what I have to teach.
The CD-ROM industry has grown enormously in the past few years, and several industrious young companies are clawing for a piece of the computer action.
Does he get to converse with different characters in Dark World as well?
Oh yeah, there.
Cyber Dreams, located in Southern California, was founded in 1990 when CD-ROMs were still a convoluted concept to the majority of the population. The company made a name for itself in 1993 with Dark Seed, an award-winning title that utilized the eerie artwork of Swiss designer H.R. Giger. Andrew Balzer, Director of Sales and Marketing, says that by blending creative talent with cutting-edge technology, the company has found its niche in a competitive marketplace.
What we've done is we've teamed up with world-famous artists, writers, and designers, and we've brought their expertise into the computer world in creating games for CD-ROM, for Macintosh, IBM, and set-top station.
Don't bother me, human. Can't you see I'm floating?
A sequel to Dark Seed is due out in November. As in the first game, Dark Seed 2 follows a writer named Mike Dawson into a weird parallel universe called Dark World. And fear not, Director of Development David Mullock assures us Giger's macabre monsters are creepier and more colorful than ever.
We're after a much higher graphics resolution this time around, with the capabilities of computers being much higher than they were several years ago. In the original game, we had 16-color graphics. This time around, we have 256 colors.
You named me Allied Master Computer and gave me the ability to wage a global war too complex for human brains to oversee.
Harlan Ellison has chosen to collaborate with Cyber Dreams on his first and only venture into the computer game scene. Based on his popular short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the game has been stirring up controversy for months, even though it won't be out until mid-November.
It's not like an arcade game where people just bang, bang, bang. It is a game that is supposed to make you think. It's supposed to disturb you and upset you and unsettle you, and I don't know of any other games that are like that.
The storyline for the game picks up where the short story leaves off. 5 protagonists have been tortured by a crazed computer for 109 years, and now each is being sent on a horrid adventure. One of the story tracks involves a Holocaust scenario, and therein lies the controversy.
At one of the computer shows where a preliminary version of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream was being showed, somebody showed up and got very upset about this track and said it was very disturbing, very upsetting, and it trivialized the Holocaust. Well, let me tell you something. I'm a Jew. The only way you could trivialize the Holocaust is if you forget it.
Where have you been, Nimdok? We are waiting on you to perform. You were waiting for me?
We're trying to go beyond something that merely passes the time. We're trying to create something that by playing it, it was worth your time. And trying to explore ways to create something that's truly interactive literature. Otherwise, what's the point of hooking up with creative geniuses like Harlan Ellison and H.R. Giger?
Well, Cyber Dreams must be doing something right. Wes Craven, the twisted mind behind Nightmare on Elm Street, just signed on to create a game based on an original idea of his. Freddy Krueger in a CD-ROM game? Who knows? This company is full of surprises.
I've been collecting trading cards, comic character cards, baseball cards, since I was a kid. It was always fun. You got a pack of bubble gum, you got one piece of gum, you got one picture, or you got 2 pictures. Now, for a penny. Nowadays, you get 10 holograms, chromiums, metallic cards, and they cost you $3 a pack, and there's no gum at all. And that's okay, too. Patterns change, money changes. But Unfortunately, the greed of these people has just gotten beyond my taking it. Because, folks, kids don't get to trade anymore. I mean, it's not like Middletown, Ohio, where you would go and you would find other kids in the schoolyard and you'd say, I'll give you a Mickey Mantle for a Willie Mays. You couldn't do that anymore, particularly with comic character cards. Come here, let me show you something. I got a call from Don Butler at Cards Magazine, and Don said, have you seen this new stuff that the Fleer is doing? I said, no, have them send me some stuff. So they sent me 2 boxes. They sent me this box, which is the Fleer Metal set, 1995 Fleer Metal, Marvel Metal set, okay? They also sent me another one called the Fleer Marvel Annual set. Now let me show you something. Come on around behind me here. I'm going to have to hold it up so you can see that these are pockets. I put them in these containers. They hold 9 shots. And as you can see, there are a lot of them empty here, right? They sent me a box. There was not a complete set. And once you got as many as you could get, you suddenly found something like this. You found a card like this. Here's War Machine. And then you see this one, and you say, well, wait a minute, it's exactly the same card, except then you see it says Flasher down here. Now, if you look at the other side, here's the regular card, and here's on the Flasher card. And you say, well, okay, it's a power grid. Well, what is that? The power grid is bull. It's BS. They did up 6 of those. There's an agility one, there's a speed one, there's an intelligence one, a fighting one, a strength one. That's about it. And they reproduce those endlessly to make you buy another complete set. Another 138 cards. The problem is they only give you about 20 of those flashers in the box. So now all of a sudden you say, well, where do I get the other 120 or 112 or 115 or however? You got to go to a dealer. You got to go to a dealer, and they cost you $3 a shot. Now, what they're asking for these things, these packages are $2.99 each. And what you get in them is a box is $90 is what they cost. $90. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know any 10, 12, 15-year-old kids who got $90 to waste on this. And once you get it, you got nothing because you've only got a half. You don't even get a complete set of the first card, much less the flasher cards. It's duplicity, and they don't mention it. They don't mention it on the box anywhere. They don't tell you. And the same thing for the Marvel Annual set. I mean, here's a Marvel Annual set. They sent me a box, folks. Do you see that's empty, that's empty, that's empty, that's empty? It's about $700 for a kid who would really want a complete run. $700? No, I'm sorry. Fleer, you are thugs. As far as I can tell, you are out to rob people. You are out to rob little kids. You don't like it? Then change your ways. Kids, listen to Uncle Harlan. You want a great card set? It is a card set of the golden age of comics, done by Comic Images. Here's a 6 lineup that they did. These are all old comic book covers from the 40s. And they're all in chromium, too, like this one. Wonder Comics. Did you ever see one of those? It's a wonderful 90-card chromium set. I guarantee you, one box, you will have a complete run. You will have a complete set. Probably almost all of the chase cards, too. There may be 1 or 2 chase cards you don't get, but you're going to have a 90-card set. What's more, you're going to get another 90 cards that you can trade with other kids somewhere or that you can take to a dealer and sell, as opposed to this crap from Marvel. Now, when I called Marvel, you know, Fleer, and I talked to their advertising agency, I won't tell you the name of the woman. She would be very upset. She gave me this, well, we think children like to go and trade. What does she think? It's 20 cents a piece? The kids are going to go out and trade in the schoolyard? That's bull. She should know better, and she shouldn't talk to people who know better as if they were idiots. These people who do the comic cards still have not learned that the audience for comic cards is not like the audience for baseball cards. These kids don't want to spend $10,000. They want to get a set. Why don't you try and treat your audience with a little respect, you gazoonies?